Hey, this is Alan. Welcome to episode 110. So just quickly, a couple of things before we get into this episode. If you want to check out the show notes for this, go to alanmckay.com/110. Also, I have just launched a new free crash course this week on doing creature effects. So you can access that in the show notes. It's probably the easiest way to do it. So again, alanmckay.com/110. Also there, you'll be able to get the guide that accompanies this, which is a full-blown ebook, which has all the information from all the episodes themed around the Making the Best Year Ever, which is our December goal. So do that. Go to alanmckay.com/110. You'll be able to download the guide, the ebook that comes with this as well. This episode is about building your 90-day year, crushing your goals, and accumulating a year of growth in just 90 days. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Alan McKay Podcast. Alan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Alan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Alan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on alanmckay.com.
Okay, so I'm going to dive right into this, but one thing that I talked a little bit, well, not a little bit, I talked a lot about last episode was about your someday goal and really being able to align yourself with that, because by having that moral compass, you can start to make sure that everything that you're doing moving forward is aligned with that goal, rather than being something that you get distracted by your goals. And like, I got a buddy of mine, I've mentioned this story at least once before, but I just found it interesting that like every year we get together, we'll be sitting down like Venice Beach having a few beers, and it's always the same thing. Like, what's your goal for next year? And it's like, well, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to open not a restaurant. He's going to put together like a food business that he's been wanting to do. And then every year, it's the same thing next year, because what happens? He takes on freelance work, he gets busy, then he goes into overtime, then he talks about, well, after this freelance gig's done, I'm going to take some time off. And it just never, ever happens. And that's it. Like, what are you doing today to etch yourself towards that goal? And it wasn't until we sat down and I built him a business plan that didn't involve him taking any time off at all, other than like 2 weeks initially to get stuff going with his team. Anything actually started to get that momentum. And again, it's just, what are you doing today to move you towards that goal and having that moral compass for it? But one of the big things is that if you were to look at that, well, what's my 5-year plan? What's my 3-year plan? Well, what's my 1-year plan? What is your 1-year plan? Like, what are you hoping to get done a year from now? If you were to go, and I want you to do this, whether you're driving, running, or anything, pull out a pen, risk your life right now and write this down. I'm kidding. But think about this. Like, what can you do realistically within a year that will get you closer to that goal? Okay. So for me, I talked about having that 90-day year, and that's exactly what I want to talk about now. And it's something that I don't know how to describe it. I just kind of, I guess actually to think about it a bit more, I heard probably 2 different people talk about something very similar, where one person in particular, who I don't remember his name off the top of my head, and it was in a podcast, was one of my friends, his podcast. He was chatting, and this is more of a business podcast, but he was chatting with him about like one thing that he's doing at the moment, and it was he's starting to condense his years down into 90 days. And at the same time, I think I'd heard that somewhere else before, and it just kind of like, it made sense in a way, because I'd been feeling that way for a while, where I feel like you set, and this is more my perception of it, not anyone else's, but if you set a goal of, I want to do all this stuff within a year, I've always felt that a year is so far away that your goals are going to change over time, and you're stuck with either being pig-headed about it, like really being stubborn about it and saying, well, no new opportunities, this is my goal and this is my only goal, I need to go with it, and miss out on some really amazing opportunities. Or you say yes to everything that's going on and eventually kind of spiral out of control and lose focus on what you're doing. And that's why, like, bit by bit, I've experimented so much with this about like, well, how do I manage myself? And I started more the past 2 or 3 years, like going from having weekly goals where I'm like, okay, well, or weekly routines even, where I might say, this week I need to do this, this, and this. And I started thinking, well, 1 week, things can change so quickly. And what if you fall behind? Like, managing whatever you're doing, and I'm talking more the opposite direction here, managing anything that you're doing on a weekly basis, it's too short a turnaround that it's easy to fall off. And at the same time, certain things you don't need to manage every single week. And I started thinking, well, what if I start scheduling my months what if I start scheduling my routine around once per month? In other words, I block out 30 days, and this is what I've got coming up in the next 30 days. And that to me as a routine started working really well, because it meant that there's certain things that I might need to do, but I only need to do them twice a month. Podcasts, for instance, I need to do like 4 episodes a month up until now. Now shit's changing. But that definitely meant that it wouldn't need to be a weekly thing. If I wanted to, I could batch it. And I've been trying to work towards that, but not always so successfully, sometimes better than others. But it's definitely been one of those things that by having a month-long schedule, I can start to say, well, okay, every 2 weeks could be a weekend that's just more me time. Or once a month, I get to go off and have a weekend where I get to do whatever. Or I know some people who make it a rule that once a month they have to go to a conference. That I'm not saying that needs to be something for you, but I'm trying to paint a picture that when you start scheduling things around a month, it's long enough that you can do a lot, and it's short enough that if new opportunities and things come up, then you can start to adapt and change your plans, because the next month you can start to change them up and incorporate the new changes, the new things, okay? And the best thing is that if you fall behind, if you have one of those weeks, like I had it this week, I guess I'm getting old. I went out with my neighbor who works at Autodesk. We had a meeting, and then we ended up having drinks at his place, and we didn't drink that much. Like, this is what pisses me off. We had a lot of heavy beer and wine, but like it was beer and wine, And the next day I felt kind of hungover, and then day after that I had a migraine, and lo and behold, I suddenly I'm kind of behind on everything. And instead of thinking, well, great, now I'm so behind, I might as well just give up. Instead, it's like, well, this is my goals for my month. So therefore, I just got to get this week back on track, and we're good. And I'm kind of jumping all over the place here a little bit, but one of the goals I made is like Fridays is my day off, which doesn't happen. But the whole idea is Friday, Saturday, Sunday in a perfect world would be time off for me if I got everything else that I wanted to do done that week. Okay, so by doing that, it means that if I don't, then it means that I've got 3 days to get caught up on the stuff that I fell behind on. And I kind of like having that leverage, that spare time to be able to get caught up. So even if I'm falling behind, even if I drop the ball, there's still, it just means I got to reshape my plan a little bit and I'm back on track. And so with a month, it's long enough that if you ever have one of those weeks that your friend pops into town or whatever it might be, you've still got time to get back on track with your goals. Now, going to that 1 year thing, I feel like the problem with that is that in my mind, if you have these big grandiose goals of a year from now, I want to be in a different career and I want to be doing all these big things. Let's just say that that's your goal. I want to be working in video games and have a stable job and all this money. It's very easy for you to say, yeah, that's my goal. And then think, well, it's so far away that like there's no urgency around it. And so in the very beginning, you've got that goal, but not really taking much headway or getting much headway. And then from there, later in the year, you kind of forget about your goal and you're just kind of going off chasing other shiny things. Now, problem with that is in the final area, if you remember it, it's probably going to be October, November, and it's more going to be depressing. It's like, well, I didn't get to achieve my goal for the year because like now it's too late. And that's going to be the next year's goal instead. And that's exactly how New Year's resolutions and everything else works, is you got this spike of emotion, you got this spike of focus, of determination at the beginning, and then it tapers off, then you get distracted, then you're like, yeah, I'll worry about later, or you forget, and then later it becomes the next year's thing. Oh, well, this year I'm going to really get that done. Okay, so by instead making it a 90-day goal, in other words, getting that a year, okay, if you had a year to set out and do something, that's way too long. So crushing it into 3 months is freaking insane. And that's exactly what I've started to do. And I've found that like it is a little bit insane, but it's definitely I'm getting results. And I think I mentioned this in one of my recent podcasts, but like I think there was a word, I can almost see it on one of my whiteboards here. It's it's kind of like attack with aggression or something like that. And the whole point of that is not aggression. Now I have to go over urgency, attack with urgency. And aggression's also on there, but urgency. And I think that for me is that key word that really resonates. So if I have this condensed year condensed into 3 months, then it's also going to change how I do things. It's also going to change how I tackle them. I mentioned how one of my friends, like I talked with him about what his New Year's resolution would be, and he works in visual effects as well. I've had him on the podcast. That's all I'll say. But like, he had a software company, and I said to him, like, what's your big goal for next year? And he's like, well, if I could get 3 more clients, next year, I would be happy. And then for me, I was telling him like that is too low, because 3, by doing that, you're not really going to redefine what you're doing. It's just, that's more you're happy. I'll go out and try and get 3 people. And if you don't get your 3 people, if you got 2 people, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be depressed that you couldn't get that goal. But if you were to set out and try and get 12 people, like 4 times the amount, 400%, not only is that a good thing, but it's going to change how you think about it. It's going to change how you do it, because getting 3 more clients means like, all right, I got to pick up the phone like 3 times this year, and hopefully people will agree to work with me. If you set your goal to be 12 people, like 4 times the amount of what your original goal for the year was, you're probably going to need to change your strategy up. You're probably going to need to rethink what you're doing to make that happen. And when you do, I think it'd become pretty clear, well, why don't I do this more? Why don't I get 30 clients? What would I need to do to get 50? How do I get that growth? Because once you start to change things to get bigger, better results, that's when you're going to get that major growth, because you're going to change the way that you do things for the better. You're going to rethink things for the better. And on top of that, and this is the best part about it, even if you didn't hit your 12 people mark, if you got 5 people, if you got 10 people, it's going to be a lot better than 3. So even if you fail, even if you do a lot worse than what you anticipated, it's probably going to be a lot better than 3. It's because you've had to rethink your process, rethink how you would go about doing something on a much larger scale. And that's exactly what we're doing here, where instead of setting out to accomplish X amount in 3 months, you're actually condensing down these massive changes that you need. So even if you didn't get to 100% to your 1-year goal within that 3 months, it is going to drastically affect the way that you would tackle everything. You're going to get a lot more done in that 3 months than you would probably get done in 6 months or even 10 months. And that's where the big changes happen. Okay. So that's definitely something that I want you to think about now, is like your 1-year goal. Okay. And it might be that you want to change careers. It might be that you want to be a supervisor. It might be that you want to start working on set. It might be that you want to have more responsibility. It might be that you want more money. I think that, and I always say this, like, money's one thing, but I think you can think bigger than that. Because I think that a lot of the things that we measure with money really come from the things that we're doing to reflect how we get that money. Okay. I'm going to talk this month about that, about how to get more money and things you can do right now to do that. So that's definitely one of the things I'll be bringing up in one of these early episodes, because I want you to start planting the seed now to get that money come January or February. When everyone else is setting their goals of, I want to get more money before, mid-year or whatever, you've already done the heavy lifting. So it's more about just checking in January, February, and getting that money that you can be doing right now. And there's going to be a lot of that stuff that I'll be diving into. So with your 90 days, okay, what I want you to do, and I'm going to put up a guide on this, because I think that visually, this is going to work a lot better than me just saying, get a year and condense into 90 days. So I'm going to help you with that. I'm going to put up a guide that you'll be able to have access to and be able to get into this stuff. So I'll leave a link to that in the show notes, and I'll leave that all at the end. And basically with this though, I want you to think about what your big goal is. Like, what do you want to get done? And write down like all the things, because it's not going to be just one thing. It's going to be a lot of different things around that. Like, what are the things that you need to get done within that time? And I've been carrying around the same sheets of paper, because I did the exact same thing. I basically, you can hear this paper ruffling right now, but like, I've been carrying around the same paper for weeks, because it was one of those things. As soon as I did this, and I did this on a whim, just like with this podcast and all these new episodes, because I'm crazy. It wasn't like I read it somewhere, or it basically just came to me like, time to plan out everything, time to make some big changes. And I basically sat down and I wrote down every single thing that I want to get done. And you need to simplify that though. You don't want to just say, I want to walk the dog 500 times and a bunch of irrelevant stuff. This is the big, really pivotal stuff that's going to change your life. And by doing that, by saying, I want to have this, like, just focus on results. And if you focus on results, that's going to be the big catalyst for all of this. And by doing that, by being able to sit down and say, okay, well, these are the things I want to do. Well, how do I do that? What do I need to do? What do I need to do every single week to make that happen? And so what I ended up doing, at the time I Googled it and I was like, I think we're in like week 35, something like that. I forget. But you can just Google like, what week of the year is it? And it's going to come up like, it's going to say, because there's 52 weeks in a year. And this is how I typically measure everything is like, week 42, week 45, week 50. And this way I can start to figure out those goals. I can start to figure out, well, where am I at this week? What do I need to do this week? So in a nutshell, figure out the big goals. Figure out what you want to get done. If it's working at a big visual effects studio, then what are the key things that you need to do within this time? It might be, I need to cut a new reel. I need to go and, if I don't have it already, I need to go and work on some smaller stuff that validates my skill set. So maybe I need to go and work at a few commercial houses, things that are short turnaround, not like 3 months, 6 months jobs, things that are smaller. Build that relationships, start targeting and finding out people in the company that you can send your stuff to and start building that relationship. Whatever those things are, but write down all those key things. And then from there, start to block them all out. Start to figure out like, what are the things that you need to get done each and every week that are going to inch you towards that path. So if you want to do it backwards or you want to do it forwards, but point is for me, like week 1, might be like, I'll give a really simple one is weight loss. And that's actually something like on my 90-day goal is to, and this sounds ridiculous to say out loud, lose 70 pounds in 90 days. And I'm already down 25 ahead of schedule in that. And it's just because it all got written down on a piece of paper, suddenly that completely changed. It made it very easy for me. It still shocks me that I got that much of a beer belly to shape to get rid of, but that's just it. Like by having all these things coming up, by mapping it all out, and scheduling it all by weeks, it means that you're focusing on the key points that are really critical. It's not focusing on the little small things, because you can figure it out day by day. Like, well, Thursday I'm going to get these things done. Who cares about that stuff? This is more how you can measure everything and see where you're on point. And if you fall behind, because I've had those weeks, sometimes it's because I've got a bunch of new training coming out, and we did the shoot and the tracking is taking longer than expected for all the character match move. And because of that, that's put me behind a week. And I know that that's fine. It definitely means that there's going to be a week somewhere in the next 2 weeks that is going to be very intense to play catch up. But because I'm scheduling everything by months, it means that I'm able to get caught up whenever I need to. But for me, with my website, so I'm launching a new website in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. It meant that I needed to design the site. I needed to hire a designer for the initial layout, then hire another one who was more available to do the other pages. Hire a developer, which means I need to maybe spend a week interviewing developers and interviewing designers, trying to find the right people for it. Meanwhile, I've got to work on all the copy. I've got to work on what I want done. So there's like a big checklist of stuff. And like every single week, I'm working on all that stuff and I'm getting all this stuff done while I'm also working on recording new lessons for the live action series. I'm working on getting ready for the opening up registration for that at the time. Doing all the health stuff, working on the new free training, planning it all out, organizing the shoot originally, organizing the talent, all those bits and pieces. And by having like all this stuff going on at once, I would drive myself insane if I hadn't planned it all out and had all these different moving parts. And I go back to like me talking when I was 14 about like setting a bigger goal, but because I was able to work backwards, I was able to say, well, I need an education, I need a reel, I need to learn this stuff because I'm not like, great at 3D. I know 3D and I know I want to do it, but I got to go and like work on my skills. Meanwhile, I got to go and find people in the industry so that way I can network with them. I need to get experience, like all these different bits. It's not like I'm going to tackle one by one at a time. I'm going to do it all. But by breaking it down, it eventually became single steps. By you breaking down into weeks means, okay, well, how many weeks do I have? 12 weeks to do something? Then that means like within these 12 weeks, what am I doing each week in all these different areas to do it? From there, every single week, I can sit down on a Sunday and I can write my report on like what I intended to get done that week. And and what I need to still do. And if I fall behind, then I can start moving some of those bits over to the next week, but attacking those with that urgency. And bit by bit, you're moving forward in all these different pieces, but you're not getting bogged down by the fine print. You do that on a daily basis So that way you're just looking at how you're moving forward overall. And I didn't plan for this to go as long as it has. I kind of, it's been a bit trickier than intended just to kind of go through this all. But the whole point is that by having the everything planned out as a bigger picture and then breaking down to smaller goals, you're able to kind of etch forward overall and see the progress every single week. So, by doing that, I'm not taking on too much at once, but I'm not taking on too little. By giving myself a year, I'm not going to really be able to make any progress on anything. It's just, you don't have that urgency, but when it's 3 months, you have so much to get done in so little time, you have to make progress on everything. And by mapping it all out, you can see every single week, well, how did I do this week? Did I record these lessons for that? Yes, I did. Did I do the shoot for this? Yes, I did. Did we do the photogrammetry for that? Yes, I did. Did I hit the weight goal I wanted? Yes, I did. Did I develop all the pages that I need to send off to the designer? Yes, I did. Redesigning the podcast, cover, which I'll be releasing soon. Yes, it got done. And then, one thing that didn't get done, oh my God, because the website's a little bit behind. Again, developer side. But, and my expenses done. So I'm just looking at 1 week here, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things. That was a busy week, but those 8 things might end up being 20, 30 tasks. But the good thing is that I'm worrying about them on a daily basis then. Like, okay, Tuesday, I'm going to work 4 hours on this, blah, blah, blah. For you, it might be 90 days. Well, what can I achieve in that time? Can I learn a new software package? Yes, I can. Could I cut a new reel in 90 days? Hell yeah. Could I build a new website within 90 days? Yes, definitely. Could I look for a job, go for the interviews, get a job, and start a whole new career within 90 days? Yes, 100%. Could I do all of those things at once? Fuck yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't. So by doing all those things and breaking down to little goals, okay, I want to learn a new software package. Every day, going to get up at 6 to 10 in the morning. That's going to be me, 4 hours every single day. I don't want to do the math on that because my brain hurts right now. I know it's not a difficult thing to figure out, but the whole point is within that 1 month or 3 months, you've condensed an immaculate amount of time to devote to something, and you can fully immerse yourself in it. You can absolutely do that. So that's what it's all about, being able to crush them down. Like I said, I'm going to put together a goal on this, which I think will explain it a lot more thoroughly, and I apologize for 20 minutes to go through this. But again, I think that all the things I talked about here, I think are really critical, and I'm hoping that by me over-explaining these things, it makes it really clear about why and the importance of it and why it does work. It's because of that urgency. 1 year too much. Whereas managing all the little things, you're in the trenches, but by having those weekly goals that are all etching yourself further forward, like I said, if you fall off, it's easy to get back on because I can just push some of those things to the next week, and I got to work a little bit harder, but I can get them all done, then I'm back on point. And I had that a little bit from earlier in the week, so I'm a bit behind, and I feel it. Feel like shit, I gotta pick up the pace a little bit, and that's what I'm doing. And that's just the critical part about this, okay? So keep that in mind as you move forward, okay? And if you want, because I put it out there before, but map out your 90 days, shoot me an email, amckay@alanmckay.com. I will do my best to respond. I definitely read everything I get, and this is something that I'm dead serious about, so I would love to stay in touch with you and check in on you to see how you go with that 90 days. I want to see you making that progress and having that accountability as well, because I think that is a critical thing. I can be accountable to myself. So, and everything that I'm doing is result driven. Okay. So for me, the accountability is the fact that if it doesn't get done, I'm screwed. So I'm always moving forward. But I think accountability is a very big thing. So emailing someone and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, just FYI, and, please check in with me next week. Let's see if I got it all done. Because no one wants to come back and say, well, I didn't get it all done. And I've had that. I've had friends text me, hey, Alan, I'm doing all this stuff. Here's all my plans. And at the very bottom of the text, it's like, you don't need to reply. I've just been listening to your podcast, and I wanted to let you know that these are my goals. So that way someone's holding me accountable. And I love that. I was like, fuck yeah, I love that. So keep that in mind, okay? I'll be back with another episode shortly. But just keep in mind, 90 days, attack with urgency, crush that shit, okay? Shoot me an email. I'd love to hear how you're mapping this all out. And like I said, there will be a guide for this as well. Okay, so I hope you found that valuable. Again, if you want to get the free guide that comes with this month, go to alanmckay.com/110 to access the guide as well as the show notes and everything else there. Don't forget the free crash course that I put out this month. It'll be in the show notes as well. This is available for the next couple of weeks. Make the most of it while you can. All right, that's it for now. I'll be back later this week with another episode. Rock on.